Lucas walks into the woods with his pack on. It looks like a hike, but he's already planning half the build. Before digging, he studies the slope carefully because a badly oriented shelter always gets revenge later. First comes clearing the ground, so he doesn't end up fighting useless branches the whole day. Lucas drags in a few long logs. Without structure, the dream stays just a hole. He starts cutting even sections, getting pieces ready to carry more weight than a big promise. With the saw, he evens out the lengths because if one piece is off, the whole project gets cranked. He sorts the logs by size. Order first, drama later, and Lucas already knows that movie. Now, he sharpens a wooden point, not decoration, just a fast way to lock things in without screws. Each little strike leaves a clean peg behind, the kind of detail nobody notices until it's missing. He starts assembling a ladder-like frame, the base for everything that comes next. Lucas fits each piece together patiently. If this stays loose, the mountain will laugh later. The joints tighten up, and the whole thing finally looks like a real tool, not shy firewood. With the frame ready, he carries it to the slope. This is the moment where there's really no turning back. Lucas carves more wooden pegs, because out here, even the tiny details carry adult-sized responsibility. The pieces fit better, and the setup starts looking serious. Still not a house, but definitely a plan. Now it's time to open the mountain. Lucas drives his tool into the bank and starts the hard part. He begins with a small entrance, almost polite, like he's asking the hillside for permission. A few seconds later, the politeness is over, and he starts hauling dirt out for real. The mouth of the shelter becomes clearer, and Lucas keeps moving the frame around to work more comfortably. He chops, scrapes, and clears dirt, all to shape a tunnel that won't steal air or living space later. The entrance already has a rounded shape, and the hillside is slowly swallowing Lucas whole. He keeps biting into the wall, making the cavity deeper and much cleaner. Now, he works from inside, shaping roof and walls so the cave doesn't look like a geological accident. He sweeps the floor, checks the back wall, and scrapes again. He wants usable space, not a cramped hideout. The cavity already looks roomy, and Lucas can nearly stand inside. Now it really starts feeling like a shelter. He goes out to make finer wooden pieces. Sometimes a big build depends on one tiny stick done right. He carves slender rods and pointed pegs, probably for fastening, measuring, or closing joints without metal. Then he's back inside the cave, carving higher sections and opening more volume where he'll need to breathe. He attacks the ceiling carefully, because one bad hit here can turn design into disaster. He takes a short break, gathers branches, and gets a fire going, not just for warmth, but for several jobs at once. Lucas carves more small sticks by the fire. Even resting still comes with work around here. The fire catches well, which is a good sign that the shelter may actually become livable. Back at the slope, Lucas returns to the entrance, now refining instead of just opening it up. He works on an upper opening or air channel. Without ventilation, this cave would be a bad idea with a roof. He climbs back inside and keeps carving from above, all to make sure smoke won't decide to stay forever. A vertical air passage is now much clearer. Lucas is thinking about airflow before looks. He keeps hammering from outside and inside, fine-tuning that vent like he's teaching the cave to breathe. Now he starts shaping the interior with more detail. It's no longer rough digging. It's almost earth carpentry. He carves out a side shelf or niche, useful for storing things and not living like a disorganized mole. The side recess takes shape and Lucas cleans it well. A practical cave always beats a pretty cave. He keeps refining the interior corners because sleeping underground is already weird enough without making it uncomfortable too. Another wall niche appears, and little by little the shelter stops being a tunnel and starts becoming a room. Lucas levels the floor and the base, clearly thinking about furniture, a bed, or at least not wrecking his back. He takes his time correcting the edges. Comfort gets built one careful inch at a time. From outside, the mouth of the shelter already looks clean and rounded, like the hillside gave birth to it. Lucas goes out to fetch a more serious log. Now it's time for pieces that actually matter. With a thick log in hand, he starts working it like it's going to be a post or main support. He marks, measures, and cuts. This is no longer improvisation. This is real structure making. He starts cutting cavities into the wood, clean mortises, so everything can lock together without complaining. Lucas drills and hollows out a round piece. Small detail, huge responsibility. He repeats the same work on several pieces, building what looks like a small rustic construction kit. The drilled holes line up nicely, and now it clearly smells like assembly, not random wood gathering. He reshapes the outer sides of each piece so they'll sit flatter and more securely later. The finished parts are laid out on the ground, and now it's obvious everything belongs to one larger system. He starts driving upright posts into the ground, one by one, marking a module in front of the cave. Lucas cuts more short sections for cross pieces. He's building something that absolutely has to stay solid. With hammer and mallet, he seats the posts firmly. If this fails, the whole thing becomes a joke. The supports now stand vertical and evenly spaced. The front of the shelter is starting to look organized. Lucas trims the tops and adjusts the height, aiming for a structure that feels level and intentional. More posts, more corrections, more dry, heavy hits. The outside framework is now definitely serious. He carved a small joint into the end of a piece. Even the little parts here come with labor-intensive energy. He saws, pairs, and corrects. Lucas is building a bench or table with proper craftsman patience. Two vertical supports and a horizontal log confirm the idea. This won't just be shelter, it's going to be livable too. He adjusts the seat or tabletop height because one uncomfortable piece can ruin even the best cave. Lucas keeps shaving edges and correcting twists. He wants the wood to behave, not develop opinions. He mounts another long piece and starts flattening faces with the axe, heading toward a cleaner finish. Now, the wood looks more like a board than a log. That's when you realize Lucas didn't come here to do half a job. He planes and evens the surfaces, aiming for something more comfortable to use inside or outside. He cuts a long groove. That's usually for a clean fit without screws. The board now has shape and purpose. Bit by bit, the shelter stops being a project and starts becoming a home. Lucas runs his hand across a finished edge. When someone does that, they're already thinking about the final use. Two long pieces cross and lock together. Very likely part of the bench, a base, or an interior lid. He adjusts angles, tests positions, and shaves again. Everything has to slide together without a fight. Now he starts preparing thinner straight boards. The stage changes, but the precision doesn't drop. Lucas measures, marks, and cuts smaller pieces. This is where the more delicate phase begins. Using wooden molds on red soil, he starts making adobe bricks or clay panels. It's not just for looks. He needs uniform material to finish the entrance without it feeling improvised. He fills the molds and compresses the clay, like baking, except this version dries in the sun. He lifts out a long, even piece carefully. Lucas clearly knows what he's doing by now. He keeps making modular pieces, all nearly identical, full order, because every one of them already has a place. He builds a rectangular frame on the ground and fills it with fine earth, probably creating a panel or decorative base. The clay gets smoothed by hand and starts looking less like mud and more like real material. Lucas wets, presses, and fixes everything. That helps prevent cracks and gives cleaner pieces. Inside the mold, he starts arranging small clay blocks or reliefs, building a pattern. The piece now looks like a decorative panel or a vent cover. Useful, but also clearly made to look good. He keeps producing more modules and molds. Part of this shelter is definitely getting a proper finished face. He smooths the edges and marks center lines. Everything points to a much more refined facade. The finished pieces start piling up like a small stock of handmade clay elements ready for their big moment. Lucas cleans and resets the molds. He wants every panel to come out neat, not just good enough. Another batch is ready. The decorative stage now has enough material to get interesting. Now he goes after long, straight saplings because the facade needs bones as much as skin. He cuts several sections and evens them out, setting up reinforcements or some kind of front lattice. With the axe, he strips bark and shapes the ends, so each pole can fit the slope as if it belonged there. The finished poles are stacked and ready. Now the entrance finally gets dressed properly. He climbs the slope and fixes the pieces around the cave mouth, creating a rustic but very solid frame. The front gains depth and presence. The cave no longer just opens, it introduces itself. Lucas adds more poles outside like ribs or scales, reinforcing and decorating at the same time. From below, it's obvious. The entrance is moving from hole to facade with attitude. He keeps closing gaps and adjusting alignment, so the whole thing looks intentional, not last-minute glued together. With the structure ready, Lucas moves on to the clay finish around the entrance. He starts plastering the front by hand, leaving a much cleaner and smoother surface. The frame becomes more defined, like an adobe doorway carved right into the mountain. Now he places the clay bricks or modules one by one on the facade, building a gorgeous front wall. It's not just pretty. That new skin protects, organizes, and gives the shelter a real finished look. Lucas checks the other molded pieces, possibly vent covers or decorative inserts, and brings them to the entrance. Inside, he also adds a low shelf or bench. He's clearly thinking about cooking, storing, and actually living here. He cuts firewood and prepares fuel. A shelter without fire is just a nice idea with a roof. He places stones or heat-resistant material inside, fine-tuning the fire area so it performs better. He tests the hearth with coals. The cavity breathes well, and that alone is a huge win. He goes back to the facade and adjusts the plaster details. He wants everything to look as good as it works. Then he heads out to gather flat stone from nearby. Now comes the really fine finish. Lucas picks broad, even slabs, clearly planning to use them as caps, shelves, or entrance features. Back at the shelter, he breaks and refines the stone patiently. If it splits wrong, that's another walk. He makes smaller, cleaner plates out of it, perfect for slotting where clay alone isn't enough. He cuts one piece to size and tests in the wall. It looks like a window cover, vent cap, or accent stone. The slab fits exactly where he needs it, and Lucas keeps trimming edges so it doesn't wobble. He keeps splitting stone into different sizes. He doesn't buy finishes, he drags them out of the forest. A bigger slab goes onto the facade and completely changes the face of the shelter. Lucas fixes the stone in place and seals the edges with clay so it looks clean and stays put. Now the front mixes wood, clay, and stone, and the combination honestly looks ridiculously good. Up close, Lucas keeps refining details by hand. When someone does that, it means they already care about the place. He seals another smaller stone beside the larger one, closing the last gaps that could have ruined the whole look. He still goes back to correct the inner edge, because clearly he has no intention of leaving anything half-finished. With the build nearly done, he heads out for tinder and dry fibers. Now comes the rewarding part. Lucas gathers fine kindling for an easy fire. After all that clay and stone, he's earned dinner. He makes a small fire nest and lights it carefully. If this goes well, the cave is officially a home. With the coals working, he starts preparing simple ingredients. Forest cooking, but with standards. The fire inside the shelter looks stable, proof that the airflow and hearth actually did their job. Lucas moves around inside comfortably. That confirms the layout was anything but random. Now he cleans a flat stone that he's going to use as a work surface or improvised table. He puts flour or dough on the slab, because yes, after carving a mountain, he still has energy to cook. He starts shaping the dough by hand. Very homemade, very rustic, and honestly pretty tempting. The base settles onto the flat stone, while tomato and the rest wait nearby. Lucas keeps adjusting the shape. He's not aiming for fine dining, but he's also not eating a disaster. He adds tomato on top, and now it really starts looking like a proper rustic flatbread. He arranges everything with almost therapeutic calm. The finished shelter has clearly changed his pace too. A pan joins the scene. Lucas is putting together a simple meal, but a thoughtful one. He places the food near the heat of the hearth, using the shelter exactly the way he built it to be used. Steam and fire do the rest, and dinner is already looking much better than expected. He pulls the hot flatbread out and finishes it near the flame. Hard not to get hungry here. With the lamp lit, the inside looks genuinely cozy now. No longer a work site, but a home. Lucas sits down to admire the shelter glowing in the dark, like someone who can finally breathe out. The fire keeps going and dinner is ready. The mountain stopped being a challenge and became a roof. He even takes a hot drink, wearing that exact face of, yeah, this turned out exactly right. Before sleeping, he tidies the inside and checks the fire one more time. Pure instinct from a job done well. Lucas lies down inside his cave shelter. After all that work, the hillside has finally become home.